Well, welcome back to the show. I've obviously got to spend a little bit of time just talking about what's happened over the weekend. And that, of course, is the use of our Harbour Bridge for a protest, one that was, they said, the police said no, the Premier said no to the route of using the Harbour Bridge, but a court judge ended up ruling in favour. Now, they were going to march anyway, but the court judge ruled in favour. I'll show you these scenes. And this is from the Harbour Bridge over the weekend. This is 90-odd thousand people who are marching for a cause that they believe in. Now, there's a range of people from young kids to old people to boomers and the works, right? People who seem like pretty good people. There's a whole mix of people. Now, there's also people in there who are chanting death, death to the IDF, and people who are singing from the river to the sea. You know how the rest of it goes. But here's my question. What was the point of the march? There's 90-odd thousand people that our beautiful Harbour Bridge that is meant to be for travel. It is a piece of infrastructure that if you live on the north or wherever you live, right, if you got to get to the other side, you use the Harbour Bridge. So for this particular day, it was shut down. So people couldn't get to work. There's other places you could march, and I believe in the freedom of protest, regardless of what it's about. And this isn't really me saying, do I believe in the march or not and what they're marching for? This is me. I want to look at a different angle, and the angle is, what was the point of the march? Because the people who organize it, their message is this: look at 90,000 people in solidarity on this issue. Our government has to now do something. So remember, I'm not going to talk about what I think about Israel and the IDF and all that. I'm going to do a larger video where I can take my time because there's a lot of nuance in it. It's probably, my opinion's probably not what you think it is, right? But what I want to talk about in this video is what was their point. Because they said 90-odd thousand people are here marching. Now look at this. We have to do something. Look at the masses who agree on this particular topic. You had people like Bob Carr there, Julian Assange was there, right? A range of people, right? But they said, look at the masses, we have to do something. But the same logic didn't apply when a couple of years ago, there was a massive march in Canberra. And what was that march about? That march was about our own freedoms. It was in a dispute against how our own government here in this country, right, where we live, where the government who we elect are supposed to serve us and do the right thing by us. And we know now, many of us at the time knew then, but many have now learnt looking back that we were lied to daily. We were oppressed. We had our bodily autonomy taken from us and were forced to take things. If you were unlucky enough to be in that situation where you had to keep your job. And the protest that happened in Canberra was a fight against that. And there was a lot more than 90,000 people there. And the logic that's applied now to this march, which took up the Harbour Bridge, which was meant for travel, and instead also against the Premier's wishes. You go back 10, 20 years or ever a time where the Premier says no to something, you just go out and do it anyway. It's crazy. It's cost the taxpayers $1.5 million, I think, is this march. The Premier said no, police said no, and then finally a court judge said yes. But the logic that's applied to this march and why they say, look at these people, we've got to do something, wasn't applied to this march in Canberra. I'll show you these scenes here. So you got 90,000 people in Sydney marching on an issue regarding the Middle East, which I would say most of them wouldn't have an in-depth analysis or a great understanding of. I would say that most of them have a good heart. Most of them are people who probably just believe whatever they've been told. And a lot of them would believe that, that the atrocities that have happened to people in Gaza is the only thing to think about. And it's just not the case. You've just got to remember that Hamas is the governing body over that area. Now, Hamas attacked Israel on that 7th of October day. And also, you're leading me into a video I'm going to do that's just going to be more in depth. But just a reminder, when that attack happened, it took 5 hours for the Israelis to respond. So to me, that's odd. Someone who likes to dig a little deeper, I'm like, man, wouldn't take you 5 hours to respond in Sydney, Melbourne, or New York or LA, why did it take 5 hours to respond? I'll leave that cliffhanger there. But that's what shaped my opinion over the last couple of years about how I feel about, say, Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government. But that doesn't mean I have a certain feeling about Jewish people. And what's happening right now, this is actually going to another video, but what's happening right now as these scenes from Canberra still play in comparison to the march in Sydney, what's happening right now is that there's this sentiment right now that you can just hate Jewish people because of what Bibi Netanyahu or his government doing. And it's crazy to think you can just outright hate a certain ethnicity or race of people and yet call yourself someone who's on the side of love, freedom, and unity. Those things don't go together. Again, that's going to be another video, one that I can go into more depth about all that. But I just wanted to mention those two marches, right? The whole idea is look at the masses of people. Look at all these people who believe in something. The government has to do something. And you're talking about something that's happening in the Middle East. Got nothing to do in your life here. Doesn't mean you can't care. Doesn't mean you can't get educated on it. But the same sentiment that you think the government's now going to do something, they never do anything. That's just one day of protest. It's all over for them. The government keeps rolling with their agenda. They don't listen to you before or after election. They're not going to listen to you in one day of a march. And that just goes to show exactly why the march in Canberra, it was shut down by the media, shut down by people. It was just branded as people who were conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hats, and they tried to lie about the numbers. But the same sentiment that's being used right now with the Harbour Bridge march, with all these people, look, we've got to do something. The government has to respond. The government has to put sanctions on Israel. The government has to show support for Palestine. The same sentiment wasn't used when 3, 4, 5 times the people marched in Canberra. And why? Because the narratives are different. Because while you think marching for your cause or what you believe in actually goes somewhere, it lands on deaf ears because they only really allow things and talk about things and publicize things and put it in the media and fund it if it helps their agenda. And so I think there's many things to look at these two different marches, right? There's many things to analyze over what happened over the weekend, but I think just be reminded the same sentiment that was being used in Sydney that, look, there's 90,000 people going to do something. They didn't use that in Canberra when there was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people marching about our own freedoms, about the way our own government acted, and nothing happened. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that one. Probably a little bit different to what you thought, but I wanted to respond quickly while it was all over the news. If you like what we do here at the show, the best way you can support us is, of course, by subscribing. But if you don't sign in and you don't subscribe, you can just go ahead and share the video with someone. That's also another great way you can help us grow. Otherwise, see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.